to your back. And yeah, we're going to do a few little things. So as I said to some of you who arrived early, we've got this focus today on shoulders and arms. And we're going to start with actually some sort of quite quiet things on our backs. So the first thing I'd like you to do is just to settle down, either with your knees bent or your legs long. And Jan, are you okay with that light on? Yes, that's fine. And then the first thing I'd like you to do is just come to letting your head roll a little bit to the right and to the left. And just keep it very easy. Let the head roll from side to side. I'll do that a couple more times to the right and to the left. And just settle in the centre for a moment and bring one of your hands onto your forehead. And what I'd like you to do now is just use your hands to roll your head a little bit from side to side. So you'll stop it, so just use one hand on the forehead. So rather than using the muscles in your neck, you're just using your hand to roll your head from side to side. I think it's easiest if you have your fingers pointing, if you have the length of your hand on your forehead, rather than your fingers pointing towards the crown of your head. And just do that a couple more times, using your hand to roll your head. And then settle down. Bring both hands onto your belly. And just feel a couple of cycles of breath moving through your body. We're just starting with some lying down. Sure. Good for you. So hands on your belly, feel the breath come in, feel the breath leave you. And perhaps one more cycle of breath with the hand, both hands on the belly, feel the breath come in, feel the breath leave. And then what I'd like you to do is to bring your right arm onto the floor beside you. So we're lying down, May, and you've got the left hand can stay on the belly, the right hand comes down onto the floor beside you. And you're going to start to roll your right arm on the floor. So you're going to turn your right palm up and you're going to turn your right palm down. And try to do this by rolling the arm and the hand as much as possible rather than lifting. And then you're going to start to coordinate this movement with your breathing. So it doesn't really matter which way. So it could be that as you turn your palm up, you breathe in. And as you turn your palm down, you breathe out. So you're starting to coordinate the movement of your arm with the flow of your breath. Breathing in as the palm turns up. Breathing out as the palm turns down. Could you do this for 2 more cycles of breath? And I'd like you to end up with your palm facing up. You're resting the back of your hand on the floor. And then we're going to keep our attention with our breathing. And you're going to touch your thumb onto your index finger. So this is in the right hand that's resting on the ground. Touch the thumb to the index finger and let a breath come in and let a breath leave. And then touch your thumb to your middle finger. And the same thing, let a breath come in, let a breath leave. And then touching your thumb to your ring finger, let a breath come in, let a breath leave. And then finally touching your thumb to your little finger. Let a breath come in. Let a breath leave. And then bring your right hand back to your belly. So you've got both hands on your belly. And you can feel the cycle or two of breath moving through your body. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave. And then when you're ready, bring your left arm onto the floor beside you. And start to roll your left arm on the floor. So turning your palm up, turning your palm down. Turning the palm up, turning the palm down. And then starting to coordinate that movement with your breathing. So as your palm turns up, you let a breath come in. As your palm turns down towards the floor, you let the breath leave. Breathing in, your palm turns up. Breathing out, you roll your arm, you let your palm turn down. Just carry on with this for a few more cycles of breath. And then again, end up with the palm of your hand facing the ceiling and bringing your thumb to touch your index finger. And let a breath come in and let a breath leave. So just as we did on the other side, you'll move through the four fingers in turn, touching the thumb next to the middle finger, letting breath come in, letting the breath leave. And carry on through the ring finger and the little. Again, when you've finished, you could bring both hands back to your belly for a cycle or two of breath. Here we're going to come to one sort of stretching movement. If your knees are bent, I'd like you to lengthen your legs out on the floor. And you're going to reach your arms up by the sides of your head and interlink your fingers. Yes, and you can stretch into your heels. And if you can, sort of then interlink your fingers and then turn the palms of your hands away from your head. And so you're stretching into your hands and your heels. If you have your arms on the floor, Marie.
Arms on the floor.
But here. Near the floor. Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah. So arms on sort of on the floor beside your head, rather that's it. And then stretch into your heels, stretch into your hands. And just do, and then maybe release and then stretch again. Obviously, don't do anything that's going to cause you discomfort. Just that feeling of sort of long and stretching. And when you've done this 2 or 3 times, you're then going to fold your knees into your chest. Good. It might feel quite nice to be quite long. So that's it. Fold your knees into your chest. And when you fold your knees into your chest, you can rock a little bit from side to side, but then we're going to take the arms and the legs up to the ceiling into this sort of gravity pose one and give them a shake out. Arms and legs up. And shake out the arms. So one of the things we're going to do today is to be moving between taking weight through our arms and then releasing them. So from giving your arms a shake out, you can roll onto your side. Sorry. Have a couple of breaths there. And then we'll be coming over onto hands and knees. And I suppose what I would say is if at any point you need to take the weight off your hands and wrists, and I haven't said so, then do so. It's very different for all of us, these sorts of things. So the first thing you're going to do is just quite simply Come on to hands and knees. Big handprints on the floor, and just do a little bit of circling your shoulders over your hands. And how does that feel? And so this just starts to give us an indication of how our wrists are feeling today. Our wrists, and also how does it feel to lean down through the arms, to bear some weight through the arms? How do the arms feel? How do the shoulders feel? And then we're going to do these ones, which I realize I have done for absolutely ages. You're going to take one hand and turn that hand out to the side a little bit, and then a little bit more circularly. So you turned your fingers out to the side, sorry, that's it. And then it might be you can turn those fingers a little bit more out and around, probably not all the way to point back towards you. Circling. And then turn your fingers the other way. So now turn your fingers so they're pointing towards your other hand. And a little bit of circling there, meaning it's that hand. And then finally, you're going to turn the fingers back sort of on a bit further without forcing towards your body. So again, they probably don't come all the way. And a little bit of circling. And then we'll do exactly the same with the other hand. So come on to the second hand. Again, turn your fingers first of all, so they're just pointing out to the side. A little bit of circling there. And then from there, we can turn the fingers on a bit more. So they're starting to point more back towards your body, but probably not all the way there. Notice how the wrist feels. So it might feel quite different one side to the other. And then turn the hand back, so your fingers are now pointing towards the hand that's on the floor. You can keep most of your weight in the supporting arm. Yeah, so you can really vary how much weight you put through the turned hand. And then finally turn the fingers on a little bit more, so they're pointing more towards your body, but without. And then bring your hand back. Go forwards for a moment. And then from here, let's just sit back over our heels and give our hands a shake out. So two things we'll do is a sort of when we come out of these things. One is to shake the hands out. Actually, there's three things. Shake out the hands, bring the backs of the hands together, give the hands a bit of a wiggle. And then the third one is this one where you can just swing your arms. And if you're not so happy sitting down and kneeling, you can always be up and kneeling like this. So these three things just give us a chance to release the arms in between sort of coming on to take weight through the arms. Good. So from here, you're now going to come back onto hands and knees. And the first thing you're going to do is see how it feels to come into dog pose. So in dog pose, we're rocking our weight back. So we perhaps start off with our shoulders over our hands and wrists, but if we tuck our toes under, we rock our weight back from the hands. And then we pick our knees up. Just come into our dog pose. See how it feels to be supporting ourselves, obviously through the legs as well as the arms. And yeah, I think in this first dog pose, it's probably going to be quite a lot of bending the knees, walking on the spot. Yeah, what can we do to sort of start to undo and release? Let the head go. Good. Big handprints. Noticing how our arms and shoulders feel. Now, a little bit, I would sort of like you to move between these things in your own time. You've now got a choice of either coming into child pose or doing a bit of cat. And then we'll do a bit more dog, cat and child. So if you think about, we have these three things we can move between. Dog pose, some of our cat movements on hands and knees, and child pose. And you can do these with me if you like, or you can move between them as you so wish. So me, I think I've just based this on what I felt like doing yesterday. So I did a bit of dog, I came to a bit of cat, and then from a rounded up cat, rounding my back to the ceiling, rock back into child pose. And then a couple of breaths in child. Just, yeah. just in your own time, moving between those three things. And if you feel that actually just staying in child pose is what you want to do, that's fine. No. Or if you feel that, oh, I really want to, dog is what I need to do today. I think all the time, because it's our particular focus today, all the time just, making sure you keep coming back and checking in with your arms and your shoulders, and how does that part of yourself feel. So obviously in dog and in cat, we're supporting ourselves through our arms. And obviously when we come into child pose, we're really trying to use this as an opportunity for the shoulders and arms to soften and relax. Yeah, very nice dog there. Yeah, maybe just have another minute or so if there's any of these three things you wanted to do a little bit more. Yes, and I find it very helpful to keep sort of coming back to the cat movements in between other things and just seeing how they develop. Yes, and cat on your elbows, that's very nice, Francis. Yes. Good. And it might be quite nice if you, yes, to finish off this little period in child pose. Because we're going to move on to a bit more taking our weight into our arms. So settle down into child pose and just notice how your shoulders feel. We can have this focus of imagining that when we exhale, we're breathing out through the back of the neck, through the shoulders, through the length of the arms, and out through the arms. So this sensation that as we exhale, we're releasing tension from the whole of what we call the shoulder girdle and down through the arms. And then we're going to move on into plank pose. So probably guess if we're taking weight into our arms. Now in plank pose, we're starting off in that this hands and knees position, and our shoulders stay over our wrists. We're not moving, like in dog, we move our shoulders back. In plank, we're just trying to put our shoulders over our wrists. And then we're seeing how does it feel to take one leg back behind us? How does it feel to add the other leg in and to keep the pelvis in this sort of long line, so the pelvis doesn't lift up even when we take our knees off the ground. Yeah, how does it feel to have a few breaths in plank pose? Really stretch your heels back away from you. So yes, that's plank pose when you're ready. Take one leg back and then the other into your plank pose. Good. And having a few breaths there. And we're going to do a couple of plank poses. Do come down. Sorry, it is. So some of you went in much earlier than others. So yeah, come down, exactly. So perhaps in between plank poses, you want to sit back in kneeling, give your hands a shake out, bring the backs of your hands. All of these things we can do. Backs of hands together is quite good after plank. And even a bit of swinging our arms. And then we can try a different plank pose. And Francis, if it's not so comfortable kneeling, make sure remember you can be up here. And then let's try a second plank pose. So again, that's shoulders over the wrists. Have a sense of where your pelvis is, because we're trying to take a leg back, tuck our toes under, and then let the pelvis stay where it is as we add the other leg in. And we're just leaning through our arms, resting down through our arms. Really stretching the heels back behind. Yeah, and you're looking down at the floor, somewhere perhaps just slightly ahead of your fingertips. Good. You're obviously trying to breathe there to your best ability. And yes, whenever you've had enough, come back down. And again, you can do those sort of shake out the hands, backs of the wrists together. Yeah, swinging the arms. Yes, up here, swinging the arms. And then I'd just like us to do something where we're completely not using, well, not taking any weight through our arms. I'm not sure that it's necessarily going to make it be an easier thing. You're going to come sit at the front of your mat like this. We'll do this later on in class, but I thought we'd do it earlier. So we're going to start with this movement where you've got your hands on your feet and you're sliding your hands up towards your knees, looking down at your belly. So this is the beginning bit, which is not too onerous. So looking down, letting our back be nice and rounded. And from here, we could then move on to just a bit of letting ourselves, I've got a very creaky floorboard here, so we're letting our feet come up, letting ourselves rock back, and then try to come forwards again. So, yeah, let yourself come back. When you're coming forwards, it helps if you look forwards, and it also helps if you don't sort of let yourself go all the way down. Look back, come forward. So as you're going back, look down at your belly. So as you're going down, and as you're coming forwards, look forwards where you want to go. Let's try that a few more times. So taking the work out of our arms and we're putting it into our abdominals now. Okay. Now, sometimes, so maybe do one more coming back and just notice that we can end up going really low down on the floor, which sometimes then makes it quite hard to come back up. So we're going to try to make this into a balance now and straighten our legs out. So in this one, it's quite good not to go too low down. So I'll roll back, and then at that point, I'll start to lengthen my legs out. Just see, can I sort of balance? That's it, very nice. And then come back up again. So we'll try this one 3 times, and that seems to be my tip at the moment, is to not to go too far. So it's almost at that point where your feet are coming off the floor that you then start to lengthen your legs out. That will prevent you from rolling too far back. And obviously, stop talking, you feel your abdominal muscles kicking in. So good. Very nice. So let's try that one more time. After this one, I'm going to let you roll down all the way and collapse on your back. So after number 3. And we will maybe come back to these later on. So can we just collapse all the way down onto the ground? And just let yourself have, this is my book, a rest. But when you just started, a rest on your back, let your abdominals obviously rest and relax. And then you can come back to your gravity pose. So you can come back to folding your knees into your chest, taking your legs up to the ceiling, giving your legs a shake. And then from here, we're going to roll onto one side. We're going to come back to hands and knees, back to cat, and then dog, and then a forward bend and standing. So when I was doing this myself yesterday, it felt very nice after those boat pose movements to come back to cat pose on hands and knees. So see how it feels to come back to your rounding and dipping movements. And feel how you're leaning down through your arms, you're supporting part of your shoulders, I suppose, and the part of your body through the bones of your arms. And then when you've done several cycles of cat, you can then move on into dog. So tucking the toes under. Once we tuck the toes under, we're rocking back. So the weight is moving back out of our hands, sort of, yeah, towards the feet. Come into your dog pose and just seeing again how does dog pose feel for a few cycles of breath. Very nice dog poses. So if you're enjoying dog pose, you can stay there for a few more breaths. When you're ready to move on from dog, you're walking your hands into your feet. You're coming into a forward bend. You might like to bend your knees and rest your elbows on your thighs. So just, yeah. And when you're in your forward bend, just have a look at your feet. It's a good place, yes, if you're coming off the back of your mat, move forwards. It's a good place just to look at your feet, particularly the toes. Make sure the toes are long and relaxed. Feel the weight in your heels. And then you can sink into your heels and roll up into standing. Sarah, would you like some water? So in standing, we're going to start when you arrive with this big, loose, easy swinging twist. This big movement, maybe what I was going to say. So we're going to carry on our focus on our shoulders and our arms in standing, but with, I suppose, without weight bearing through the arms. We'll come back to a bit more of that later on. So this is more, I suppose, about releasing the arms and shoulders, finding movement. Good. So in this one, we're moving the whole of the body, and the arms are a really important part of that. And then we're going to focus into just moving one arm, but I want you to feel that your body is moving with your arm. So choose one arm to work with, and we're going to do these big circles with our arm. But you're letting your body move. So you're drawing a circle with your arm, keeping the elbow fairly straight, but you're making sure your body moves with the arm. Yeah, so you're not trying to keep your pelvis fixed. And then you can change the direction of your arm. So if you were circling one way, circle the other way. That's very nice. Good. Good. So keep working with the same arm a couple more times. You could change the direction again. That's it. But just make sure your body is moving as well. So it's not just... And if anything, any of these shoulder things feel that you're wrenching your arm, then stop or do less. You can always do a sort of small circling movement. Let's come on to the second side and try the same thing on the second side. So you're drawing as big a circle as possible with your arm, but if that feels too much, then it can be a much smaller circle. Your arm's a bit more like a pendulum. So this big circle is a bit like you've got sort of like swimming type arms, back stroke arms. Going one way, obviously. You go the other way, they're more like front, single front crawl arm. Good. And again, letting the pelvis move. Help us. We come back to the first direction. So I just keep that, so just keep varying it. Good. And then just perhaps then let both arms swing a little bit and cross in front of you. This could just be quite light and easy. And then for a moment, we're just going to let the arms hang completely. See how that feels. You might like to sort of shake your hands a bit, so that giving it a trying to shake your hands off the end of your arms. Off your wrists, yeah. Just close your eyes for a moment. Let your arms hang from your shoulders. You can feel the contact of your footprints on the floor. You could sway a little bit from side to side. You could also just settle and feel the movement of your breath in the body. So you could bring one hand onto your belly and one hand onto your chest. Just for 2 or 3 cycles of breath. Letting the shoulders soften and drop. And then let's bring the hands on into prayer pose in front of our chest and open the eyes now. You're going to let a breath come in. As you exhale, you're going to take your arms down and then up. Let your shoulders drop down away from your ears, and then you're going to come back to swinging your arms and crossing them in front of you. But perhaps, I don't know, say a little bit more vigorously, not to go crazy. A little bit more vigorously swinging. And from here, you're going to swing your arms all the way into your eagle arms with your right arm on top. So this one where we give ourselves a hug, and then we come to, that's it, wrapping our arms around the eagle arms. And then from here, you can step your feet a bit wider apart, so maybe as wide as the narrow edge of your mat. You can sink into your heels, and with your arms and eagle arms, you can come on into a forward bend, bending your knees as much as you like. Good, so that sort of crisscrossing of your arms helps to perhaps lengthen out your spine a bit more. Whenever you want to uncross your arms and release them to the floor. Feel your heels sinking into the ground. Make sure you're bending your knees as much as you like. If you haven't uncrossed your arms, perhaps do so now and just let your arms be nice and floppy down to the ground. And then sink into your heels and roll back up into the center. And then bring your feet back so they're a little distance apart. Bring your hands into prayer pose in front of you. Are you right there, Jan, with your space to swing your arms? So. If you haven't, you can always turn around. I just feel and then both of you bring your feet back so they're a little bit closer together, because we always have that bizarre thing when we turn the other way, we take our feet wide. Good. Let a breath come in. As you exhale, take your arms down and then up. Good. And then again, this swinging the arms. So you should probably swing them more vigorously now, Jan, without worrying you with the passions. Good. And again, with this one, we will swing our arms into eagle arms. This time it's the left arm on top. I was just thinking I can remember to tell you which arm. It's so hugging yourself and then coming into eagle arms, the left arm on top. So I always find it impossible to remember which arm I've got on top. So yeah, step the feet a little bit wider apart, sink into the heels, and then, so if you're standing, you can take your feet as wide as the narrow edge of your mat, that's it. And then sinking into your heels, softening your knees, bending your knees a little, folding forward. Use that weight of the crossed arms to help lengthen out your spine. If you want to then undo your arms and release them to the floor, you can. Always have a couple of breaths in the forward bend. So it's good, yes, if you haven't released your arms, do so and just make sure they're floppy, and then sink into your heels. And now Sarah and Janet, it would probably be better now to turn back the other way on your mat. So we're going to do another shoulder thing, but you just need to have a little bit of, in a moment, we're going to be stepping forwards. So just make sure you've got a bit of space in front of you on your mat to step forwards. And then again, start with your hands in prayer pose in front of you. So feet just a small distance apart. And so from here, you're going to exhale, take your arms down and then up again. And this time you're going to touch your hands in prayer pose over your head. And then you bring your hands to the base of your neck. So that not very comfortable place to be. Leave one hand there, and then the other arm's going to come out to the side in a big circle, big sort of semicircle. Turn your palm back. So your hand slides up your back towards cow arms. It doesn't matter whether you touch fingers or not. And then take the other arm out to the side. Turn the palm back in this big semicircle. And you're coming towards reverse prayer pose, but don't force this one. Yeah. And then come back to the first arm, and that's going to circle back up now. So you come back through your cow arms. Good. And then come to the second arm, that circle back up. So we're going to keep on this circling movement. Take the arm out to the side, slide the hands up your back, and just carry on. Now the other arm comes down. Good. Good. Just carry on. Oh, yes. Yes, we're just trying to think we move one arm and then the other. So sort of we move through cow arms, We move to that lovely place where we have both hands on the base of the neck. And then what I'd like you to do is end up in some, it doesn't matter whether you're not in reverse namaste. You could decide to have your hands on the back of your pelvis. You could hold your wrists or your elbows, or it could be at reverse prayer pose. And then you're going to step your right foot forwards on the floor. And again, I'm just telling you right foot, so you won't have to remember it. Do a little bit of rocking forwards and back, shifting your weight forwards and back. And then from here, we're going to be coming into a forward bend with our hands wherever they are, in prayer pose or holding our wrists or hands on the back of the pelvis. So see how it feels, first of all, to start to fold forwards with your knees straight. And probably like me, you'll get to a certain point and your front leg is really shouting, that hamstring. Then you can bend your front knee. And then you also might like to release your arms down to the ground, sort of easy release from wherever they were. And let your head go. And let your chest fold close towards that bent front thigh. Good, that's very nice. And just have a couple of breaths in that forward bend. And then on an exhalation, sink down into your heels, come back up into standing. And have a shake out before we do the other side. So what we do for the other side is you'll come back to, just a few times come back to that, so hands in prayer pose, taking the arms up. So come back to that lovely, that circling movement we were doing. Hands on the base of the neck, circling one arm, and then the other arm through. So we're moving through our reverse prayer pose, through our cow arms, through both hands on the base of the neck. And then eventually you're going to end up again with your hands in some sort of reverse prayer pose. So reverse prayer pose, whether you're holding your wrists, holding your elbows, resting the back of your hands on your pelvis, and stepping your left foot forwards. So because of this, we're folding forwards. We've got one foot stepped forwards. And then we're folding forwards, and to start with, our hands are sort of out of the equation. It just means we have to really steady ourselves through our feet and our legs. So if you settle down through your feet. As you exhale, start to fold forwards with both knees straight. Just sort of see where you get to. When you get to a point again where that back of that front leg is really shouting, you can then bend your front knee. Release your arms if you like, let your head go. Have a few breaths. Is the back knee shouting as well? Okay, if the back knee's shouting as well, you might have to. If that one wants to bend, you could let it bend. Yeah, Janice, yours shouting.
Yes, it is. I want to be careful with it.
Yeah, so don't overdo it. That's it. And then sink into your heels, come back up into standing. Good. Maybe just have a little bit of shake out. So at the back of our mats, we're going to come down through a forward bend and a squat. So just make sure that if you are at the back of your mat, you can go down through a squat without sitting onto a sofa or something like that. So just settle down, feet a little distance apart. And then you can let yourself fold forwards just into a normal forward bend, and perhaps have a couple of breaths there before you start bending your knees and moving down through the squat. You're in a forward bend, your knees might be a little bit bent, looking back behind you, and then start to bend your knees more. You're bending your knees more so your chest is coming close to your thighs, and it's fine if your heels come off the ground. Yeah, so maybe let your heels, because from this squat we're actually going to go forwards rather than sit back onto our bottom. So what I'd like you to do from your squat is to then sort of gently lower yourself forwards onto your knees. And to then walk your hands forwards on your mat. And what you're going to do here is sort of walk your hands further forwards than your shoulders, so you're in a long hands and knees. And at this point, you can untuck your toes. I just want you to do a little bit of playing around, of rocking your shoulders further forward. So you're rocking your shoulders over your hands. So this is where we start to head towards face up dog. You don't have to push it at this point and go all the way into face up dog. But just how does it feel? But there is, and I suppose, two things to think about, particularly how does it feel? There's obviously the shoulders, the arms, the wrists, the shoulders. How does it feel to take your weight into your arms? And also, yes, so that's good, Sarah, to just have a little breather. How does it feel in the front of your pelvis? Because here has to open up. And yes, if you want to come back from it and shake your hands out, what we're going to do is come on and do a lunge, and then we're going to come back into this face up dog and do it a different way. So let's from hands and knees, bring 1 foot forwards into lunge. Good. So in lunge, as we know, we want to have our front knee over our front heel. Back toes can be tucked under or flat. So we're looking for this feeling of a big sort of stretch through the front of the back leg thigh. And then just, yes, have a few breaths in your lunge. And see how it feels, just giving the weight of the pelvis. Sometimes you'll find it more helpful to ease in and out of lunge. So you could untuck your back toe and you could do a bit of this sort of easing back, where we look back, we keep our chest close to our front thigh, and then ease back into lunge. So it might be you want to keep moving forwards and back, or it might be that you go back once and then actually you can come and stay in lunge a bit more, I would say easily or profitably. Now, in a moment, we'll swap sides of lunge. You could swap sides of lunge from hands and knees. If you fancy going through dog pose to swap your sides of lunge, you could do. It's really up to you. So you might just want to ease back out of lunge and then swap onto the other side, hands in. And when you come onto the other side of lunge, again, just starting off with the front foot, the front leg. The front foot's well planted on the floor, the front knee is over your front heel. How does it feel? And if like me, you're thinking, oh my goodness, this feels rather tight on this side, you could do some easing forwards and back. So you could untuck your back toe and you could rock back out at lunge. Just let yourself relax for a moment and come back into lunge. Oh yes. So again, it's really up to you whether you want to stay in lunge or whether you want to rock back and forwards, in and out of lunge. Well, I think that's variable, isn't it? Do you come out of lunge if you've had enough? I mean, I think it's variable. It's always good to have the hands there so that if you feel there's too much weight going through your pelvis. Yeah. But I suppose I suppose it's just, it's optional how much you take. Let's come to some cats and then we'll take cat into face up dog. So let's just come back again to hands and knees. Yes, I would say it probably just varies day to day, Jan. How does that lunge feel? You always got that option of taking weight into your hands and arms.
If you're not working towards having no weight in your arms.
Not necessarily, no. I don't think so, no. Yes, so coming to cat, a bit of rounding your spine, lifting your spine. From your cat, in a moment we'll move on into face up dog. So if you round your back to the ceiling, come into a rounded up cat, and then tuck your toes under and rock your hips back over your heels. And then at this point, so when you've rocked back, then walk your hands a little bit further forwards on the floor. And then you're going to travel into your face up dog by rounding your back to the ceiling and looking back towards your pelvis. So watch your pelvis come forward. When your shoulders are over your wrists, you can start to look forward and the shoulders come down away from the ears. Up, that's it, good. And then come back, reverse that movement, round your back, tuck your toes under, all the way back. Let a breath come in. We'll do this 3 times, and you can start to, as you exhale, round your back, travel forward into face-up dog. Again, think shoulders down away from the ears, very wide across the top of the shoulders. And then again, reverse the movement, back, round your back, tuck your toes under. Last time, if you like, let a breath come in, and then exhaling, travel forward into face-up dog. And I often find the 3rd face-up dog, that's perhaps when I want to stay for a breath or 2 more. You don't have to. Shoulders really nicely down. Good. And then from this face-up dog, you can fold back into child pose. Arms. Let the arms rest. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave, let your shoulders feel as soft and relaxed as possible. You could come back to that focus again that I mentioned earlier of when you exhale, imagine the out breath is sort of traveling from the back of your neck across the tops of your shoulders, down through your arms. Give yourself another couple of breaths in child pose, or in kneeling if you prefer. So I'm happy having my head up. And I'm afraid, but one more time, when you might like to, when you come from kneeling or child pose, to sort of sit on your bottom and lengthen your legs out. So I'm afraid one more time we're going to visit our rolling back and coming into our boat pose, our sort of a bit of abdominal workout. We're going to repeat that again. Twice. So this is starting at the front of the mat. Hands on the feet. So we start off easy. Hands on the feet, sliding the hands. So all to start with, all of this is looking. And then you can start to think, okay, what's it like if we're going to? So sometimes I do this actually, I put my fingers just around behind the back of my knees and rock back. Trying to rock back, but not all the way. Just letting the feet pick up. We're still thinking about sort of trying to find a point of balance on the back of the pelvis. Look forward to come up again. And then, as we did last time, if we rock back a little bit, and then before we go too low, start to lengthen the legs out, lengthen the arms out, have this point of balance. Get the feet off, and back up. Try that 2 more times. So again, starting to lean back, looking down towards the belly, And then before we get too low, letting the feet come up, looking towards the feet, reaching forwards with the arms. Again. Okay, one last time, and then this time you will lie down. Okay, so one more time, leaning back, looking down at the belly, and picking your feet up and perhaps starting to look at the feet a little bit, reaching your arms forward. Oh. And then from that one, just, oh. I'm sure it says in my little book to rest now. So lie down onto your back. Yes, it's quite nice to bring your hands onto the front of your body.
No, I was up much.
Yeah, it's Quite nice to have your hands on the front of your body and just feeling how your belly is now soft and relaxed and able to respond to your breathing. We are going to do a few movements on our backs in a moment, and then followed by a little bit of breathing when you could choose to stay lying or choose to sit. When you feel you've had sufficient time just to sort of settle quietly, you're going to organise yourself so your knees are bent and your feet are standing. And if you rest your arms on the floor beside you, knees bent, feet standing on the floor, arms just nice and relaxed on the floor beside you. And you're going to see how it feels, perhaps 2 or 3 times, just to roll up into bridge pose and making it sort of quite an easy bridge pose. Down into your foot. Sarah, think about sending your knees forwards, because I think as she came up, you sort of slid up the mat like this. You either want to bring your feet in towards you, or just think about your knees travelling, in the opposite direction to your head. Yeah, that's good. 2 or 3 times rolling up and down into bridge pose, and just feeling how does it feel to sort of open out through the front of the body, because in those boat pose balances, the front of the body is quite active and gathered in. Abdominals are working. And here we're just letting the sort of belly and the front of the pelvis open out. And the work really is in the legs. You've done 3 bridge poses, just settle on the ground. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave. And you're going to keep your right knee bent and your right foot standing on the floor. That's it, and you're going to lengthen your left leg out on the ground. And again, keep your arms resting on the floor beside you for the moment. And then you're going to start pressing into your your right foot, sorry. So the right foot standing on the floor. You're going to start pressing into your right foot, letting the right side of the pelvis come away from the ground. And letting your pelvis tilt towards the left. That's it. So your left leg rolls on the floor. The left side of your pelvis stays in contact with the ground. I think you'll know this foot pressing movement. Just repeat this a few times. Keep making sure your right knee is moving forwards over the right foot rather than over to the left. And it also might be that you coordinate pressing into your right foot with exhaling. I can find that quite helpful. Next time your pelvis comes back onto the floor, just pause for a moment. And then you're going to cross your arms over your chest with your right arm onto the floor. So we're going to add the upper body into this movement now. So Sarah, like this one, your right arm on top, that's it. So press into your right foot now and start to roll across your upper back, that's it. So your right fingertips could sort of reach out on the floor over to the left. Your head rolls to the left as well, very nice. But try to make sure that your right knee is not rolling to the left. The knee is still sort of going straight forwards. Just repeat this a few times.
drumming or it's amazing. Not sure.
That's very nice. So keep repeating this a few times, sinking into the right foot, rolling across the upper back. The right fingertips can reach out along the floor on the left side if you, rather than rolling onto those. You do this once or twice more. It does, I always find, give me such a nice massage in my upper back. Once or twice more, and then just sort of lie, perhaps lie long, or fold your knees into your chest. Just have a few quiet breaths, whatever you'd like to do. Shut the windows for real. I think it must be with the school. Yes. Yeah. If we do quiet breathing, I might shut it. Okay, let's come on to side two. So organise yourself so your left knee is bent, your left foot is standing on the floor, and your right leg is long. And then your arms to start with are just resting on the floor beside you, nice and relaxed. And so start the movement pressing into your left foot, letting the left side of the pelvis come away from the ground, letting your pelvis roll towards the right, tilt towards the right. Your right leg rolls on the ground. Good. And again, you could be coordinating the pressing movement with exhale. And then whenever you like, you could add the arms in by crossing your arms over your chest. We now make this more of a whole body movement where we're rolling across our upper back. So this time you've got your left arm on top. As you exhale, sinking into your left foot, rolling across your upper back, trailing your left fingertips out on the floor away from the right side of your body. You can do this a couple more times. Whenever you're ready to stop, you can release your arms, lengthen your legs out, or fold your knees into your chest. And just take a moment to do whatever your body feels that it would like right now. I think I will shut the windows with the drumming. Now we're going to quieten down. So we're going to do a little bit of quiet breathing and a mudra. Come back to a mudra we did last week. You could choose to either lie or sit. So, I mean, yeah, you can do this really well lying down. So my suggestion would be lying down, but if at this point you prefer to sit with your back to the wall, you could do. So just make sure you're going to be warm enough. Does anyone here want a blanket? Reeve, all right.
Lovely and fun.
Thank you. I can shut the windows in case that drumming carries on. So if you are going to, let's see, everyone's lying down. Okay, good. So settle with either with your knees bent or your legs long, whichever is more comfortable. And just to start with, bring your arms onto the floor beside you. And there are going to be a few choices with this, but bring your arms onto the floor beside you. And what I'd like you to do 3 times is to, first of all, stretch your hands. So stretch into your fingers. And then clench your hands into fists. So with your arms on the floor, stretch into your fingers. So you sort of stretch your hands and then clench your hands into fists. And then just when you've done that 3 times, just let the hands go. And you can either keep your arms on the floor or you can bring your hands onto your belly. We're just going to start with a few quiet cycles of breathing. If you have your hands on your belly, it can be helpful because maybe we feel the movements of the body and under our hands, and it helps us to connect with our breathing. With the hands, feel the movement of the body with the breath, and the body feels the warmth and the weight of the hands. So for a few more cycles of breath, just let yourself settle there. As much as possible, keeping your attention with the feeling of your breath, but also acknowledging that our mind wanders, gets distracted. That's just what happens. So just keep coming back to feeling the movement of the breath in our body. Cycle of breath, just where you are. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave. And then bring your arms onto the floor again, so with your palms facing up. We're going to come back to the mudra we did last week, where you're going to reach your thumb across your palm towards your ring finger. And then you're going to wrap your fingers around your thumb. So we make these sort of little fists so that all the fingers are wrapped around the thumb. And you can either keep your hands resting on the floor, palms up or palms down, or you can bring these little fists to rest on the front of your body. But when I was doing this yesterday, I was feeling that if I bring my fists onto my body, I want to rest them on bone rather than the soft tissues. And this may not be the same for you. I was resting them on this, either sort of, yes, the ribs is quite a nice place to rest them, or on the sort of, what we feel is it's not the hip bones, it's the bony sort of protuberance of the pelvis. So wherever you are, just settling your hands down in these little fists. So you're feeling your thumb encircled by the forefingers. And letting yourself settle, so your awareness can settle with this mudra, this hand position. There's also that feeling of the flow of your breath. And also the intention for the arms and shoulders to soften and relax as much as possible. When we're practicing a mudra, we want to have our hands in a particular position, but then let everything else soften around that hand position. So we've got our hands in a little fist, just resting. Our hands are in this little fist with the thumbs inside the fingers, and we're resting the hands on the front of our body or on the floor. And, yeah, just another couple of quiet breaths there before I read. everyone. You don't have to move. You don't want to. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone here. Thank you, everyone on the Zoom. Stop recording.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Kira.